Hey everyone, how are you? Monica here. I am an art witch. I'm a tarot author and artist and a witch practitioner who saw the wonderful hashtag OcculTea and came out of hibernation because of the great conversations happening. When I say hibernation, I mean I do have a YouTube channel. I am by no means an influencer. It's not a big channel. But I haven't really shared content for a couple of years. And I thought I would jump in and offer a little bit of how I feel about the topic and some of the prompts. I printed out all 4 pages, but I think I'm going to speak about these subjects without addressing them point by point and just sharing a little bit about who I am and my practice and what I may have seen or how I feel about some things. So, as I said, I've had a bit of an absence. I am a practicing folk witch here in North America, and I am a first-generation Canadian. I started my practice a long time ago because I am what you would call a crone or an elder witch. I am not Wiccan. I suppose you could say I'm pagan, but I do refer to myself as a walker between the worlds, artistic alchemist, witch, magical practitioner, and lots of different things. I don't think that is so crucial, except when you're looking for community, maybe, who identifies this way. So thank you to Ella Harrison, the Red-Headed Witch, and to the Polish witch, folk witch, for starting this hashtag and getting people talking. It's been a couple of years, and one of the reasons I stepped aside from my own YouTube channel was it was in the aftermath of a bit of a messy witch war, for those of you who are around and know some of the mudslinging that occurred. Not that it doesn't still occur, but it was particularly contentious, I think, and it just caused a real rift, I think. Whenever there are arguments to the extent that people lose their emotional control, it can turn very personal, very ugly, and very upsetting, I think, whether you're in the middle of it or an observer. I was not caught up in it because I have a small channel, and I talk more about tarot and divination, and I'm not trying to monetize my channel or go after followers particularly. I started my channel because, well, hashtag COVID. COVID, oh my. When the pandemic hit, it hit me pretty hard. And I am an introvert, and I do create work in my home studio here, which is just a tiny little alcove. It's not like my studio. It's just a tiny space where I make art. I was hit pretty hard, even though I'm quite introverted, because of the uncertainty, because of lockdown, what I observed, how I thought it would impact people, which has occurred. Bless you who thought it would go for a couple weeks and we'd be fine. What's that like? For those of us born with particular gifts, we saw what was coming down the pike and knew that it would last several years and have an impact throughout our lifetimes. So being cut off from my coven, in which I was the elder, and it was a teaching coven, we're on hiatus. That's why I say we're. I just naturally wanted to move online with things like a lot of people did who had to work remotely, work through Zoom or sharing on other platforms. I wanted to share, and that's exactly why I did. I was hoping that community didn't need to be restricted to who I ran into at the cafe. And it was a good thing for reaching out to people globally. We are a global village. I really believe that, and I think it's wonderful to be able to share that way. That wasn't really an issue for me. I think, though, trying to keep up with content and artwork and my deadlines, being self-employed for a very long time, it can get really, you're either, at least I am, maybe not you, and you're probably all younger than me, but you know, I tend to be all in or not. And I was at a point where I thought, you know, I'm going to burn out if I keep doing all the things. So I decided to take a little breather. I'm really happy to see this hashtag, and I have listened to a lot of the response videos, and I feel inspired that there are so many practitioners out there, or people who are willing to share their time and their opinion on this in a kind way. Something that I put a lot of, I think it's very important to be really kind and just share honestly and authentically. I've always tried to do that without oversharing. Always a balancing act. Don't tell them anything. Tell them everything. It's the way some of us are. So it takes a little bit of finessing, at least on my part, to, navigate that space. But I've seen so many of you just share so wonderfully, and I appreciate your opinions. I may not agree with all of them, but that's what community is. I think the ability to share a diversity of ages, cultures, opinions, and it's okay. You're held together by some beliefs, and as long as nobody's spewing hate. I mean, I'm not going to align with people that, are nationalistic to a point of racism, and who are intolerant and don't keep up with anything going on in the world, basically. I cannot follow people like that or listen to them. But for the most part, I don't know. I've heard so many great people, and I'm not horribly, put off by content I've heard from too many people. And if I am, I just look away, people. Look away. It's not anything I want to get into an argument about or, get into a fight over. It's just not. It's just not. These kind of people to me are not worth it. It's just not. And I also saw the prompt about whether there is censorship online. And yeah, of course there is. Of course there's censorship. Unfortunately, I am of the mind that there needs to be some censorship. Why do I think that? Because I'm old? No. Because I've seen too much. And when the internet was starting out, I was there. Believe me, I'm a techno weenie. That's the official terminology. I loved technology, always have. I was right in there when, the blinking cursor was ginormous and green, and there was no such thing as an operating system, either through Apple or through, Microsoft. So everything was the dark web, for those of you old enough to remember when it started out. The things that were posted were quite shocking and nauseating, and very much, we'll just say, like the dark web, because it was the frontier and there was nothing. Does that mean we should step in and censor, or people should censor? Of course not. I think it goes too far in many cases. We don't need people to keep us from ourselves to that extent. It gets silly. But we just have to try to navigate that. Personally, I wouldn't share a lot of my practice online. Matter of fact, I don't think I have shared my practice online at all because it's intensely private. It is folk magic, as I mentioned. I am a personal gnosis is a lot of it, but I've also studied extensively through different people, different cultures, different books, and primarily look at my own familial roots because they were exceptionally magical people who were born with those gifts that we all shared, including, well, being very, very intuitive, to put it mildly, and being able to interpret signs and symbols in the environment, being very close to the environment and nature, having special gifts with animals and spirits, dead people, because not all spirits are dead people, by the way, and also oniromancy, which is dreaming true or dream walking, meaning that we travel to the past, present, and future in our dreams. And it's not something that I control or, put on my navigator glasses and say, okay, tonight I am going to 1832. It's not like that. It's a very organic thing. And I have faith in the universe that I'll see what I need to see, interpret it how I need to, remember what I need to remember, pass on what I need to pass on, and leave the rest where it is and just witness. Sometimes that's what it is. So I've always kind of been this way, and I did grow up in the 70s, in case you hadn't guessed, I'm ancient. And we didn't have internet, obviously. We had a few books by a few people, and a few people who would share things reluctantly. And they weren't gatekeeping for reasons of thinking we shouldn't be part of their circle so much as, well, you just don't hand a loaded gun to people who have never had training. I think people underestimate energy and magic and think it's kind of cute. I won't blame any major animation companies for that idea. I think I just did. But it was not seen. I never saw it as gatekeeping. Did I feel left out at times? Of course I did. I was never a Wiccan, by the way. I always was a little creeped out by a lord and lady. I'm sorry, it just never sat with me. And I knew from my own family, herbal remedies and folk magic, they lost a lot of it because of many wars. My family is sort of from Northern Europe, Central and Eastern Europe. We're a real mishmash. And basically, if anyone knows a certain strip in Eastern Europe, north to south, you'll know what I mean when I say wars just never end. Borders will never stop shifting. And so the family intermarried, moved around, and my folk practice incorporates Scandinavian, Germanic, Slavic, and some Celtic practices. But they're all from my roots. I think that's really important. I appreciate everybody's culture. I don't take it, though, and call it my own. I don't feel that aligns with my ethics or my principles. And I know that's a very personal decision for everyone who's practicing. I will just say, being a white person, that puts me in a position of privilege to purchase and be a tourist in areas that may not be for me. How vague can you get? I think those of you who know what I'm saying will read between the lines. I just don't wish to, I don't want to lecture people. I'm trying to be very careful. I tend to be quite opinionated, although oddly extremely tolerant, accepting, and encouraging of diversity and inclusivity. I started a festival a few years ago called WitchFest North, and it was a month-long festival in real life in October here in a big urban center, and it had about 25 events. I am an artist. I don't really have a budget, but I am proud to say that thanks to good friends and a handful of very dedicated volunteers, we managed to put on these events. I did give people honoraria, and I managed that not through sponsorship or being having a good disposable income, but rather through any kind of donations at the door of events or ticket sales to the Witches Ball that we held, so that those people contributing who were not friends or volunteers, I didn't want them to do that for free. I'm proud to say we broke even. Okay, maybe I lost a couple of bucks in there, but we pretty much broke even from that. And I was still am, proud of the fact that I created a space that I think was safe for everyone. Having said that, you cannot expect to be a white European older person and have marginalized people who are visible minorities and ethnicities just go, oh, hey, wow, thanks, and just come running because you invite people. It takes a lot of hard work and outreach to establish that you're a safe space and you're not being performative in what you do. You are authentic, but these things take time. And I was okay with that. I was not particularly okay with some younger white witches who assumed, because I was the age I am, assumed a great deal about what I was doing and how wrong it was just by virtue of who I am. That didn't go over big for me. But fortunately, I had a lot, and still do, I think, a lot of people who, over time, have seen that what you see is what you get. I'm not scripted. If I hesitate when I speak, it's because of two things. I'm trying to formulate my thoughts, and it's not my age. I've always talked like this. And because, I want to be very careful about my tone. And sometimes I get so excited when I speak, I might sound, a little forceful or just odd. I guess I'm really self-conscious is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, and I have taught at university I taught at a university for a decade, an arts and design university, and it taught me a lot about expressing myself and where I needed to understand that, people are sensitive and I could be misinterpreted. It's difficult when you're neurodivergent to sometimes be on the ball and very self-aware. Sometimes it's a little tricky, but I think I've started to learn how through listening to people's feedback and understanding that I just need to zip it and listen sometimes. Where am I going with this? WitchFest North had to go online for 2 years because of the pandemic. It had always been my idea to have a 5-year plan and assess at that point whether to go big or go home, literally. And I did get pushback in many ways, but I wasn't terribly concerned. But the pandemic, that did two things. It shut down a lot of local people who did not have the resources to get online. And it also opened up the doors to international practitioners who shared a great deal. And it was quite good that way. and not so great in the other way. I felt very cut off, and I started a YouTube channel and thought I'll try to find other witches and tarot readers and share what I can. I've been reading tarot for over 4 decades, and I leave it there because any longer is like, I've been reading tarot for 100 years. It's like, oh my God. Oh, wow. Well, that is a great segue into influencers and the huge chunk of people who you will find in your algorithm because they are young, they're beautiful, they are white, and they have gorgeous setups and great equipment and everything you need to have a wonderful channel. I have my iPad here, and I'm not setting anything up behind me. That's my space, and I'm okay showing it. I have other altars around here and plants and a messy desk beside me, and it's all good. I don't really mind. That's an issue though. Okay? I would implore you all to, in the community, to seek out witches of color, differently abled witches, different gender expressions, different languages. I think it's really, and ages, of course. It's really important. You're not going to see them in your feed. You're going to see people who are very popular. Look for those practitioners. I sometimes look. I have not found most of these people who have replied to OcculTea until following the hashtag OcculTea. For that, I'm really thankful. Maybe we could keep hashtags rolling. Not overwhelming, but because, burnout is a real thing. But maybe we could get some of the smaller channels and be just as responsive to those hashtags and pick a particular topic that you'd like to hear. Me, I am open to every single topic. I think being the age that I am, having made the wonderful boo-boos I've made in my lifetime, I've seen a lot, I've done a lot, and I'm still learning though, and just there is no one topic I want to hear. I just like to hear from diverse practitioners who have different points of view. I do not seek out people who all agree with me or look like me. I think that's a shortcoming. Why would I do that? A lot of people do. I don't know why. I understand relating to people, okay? But we can relate to people who are not our age, gender, or our belief system. I mean, why are we not just all talking and sharing? I think you'd be surprised, and you probably have been. I know I have. I've thought I will seek out as many different opinions as I can under the umbrella of sharing some form of spiritual practice and art practice. I think it's a great thing. Are there grifters out there? Of course there are. But again, let's look at all sides of things, okay? I'm not sitting on the fence. I do not tolerate grifters and scam artists. What I mean by being moderate is not charging for things is not a red flag for being a scam artist. There are legitimate self-employed people. This is the democratization of art and of our practice, being able to charge. That's wonderful. You can use your discretion to decide whether the person is an absolute phony or not. Listen, I've seen plenty of stores come and go, plenty of brick and mortar shops, just like online stuff. People make these proclamations of being in these wonderful covens or having great press photos, and they've got all the bling, everything, and they're gone. They're gone soon because they can't keep it up. They're not real. They don't have any staying power. They're kind of like hit and run, okay? So do your research. Be well informed. Ask your friends. look for references. I don't always put a bunch of references because I think some of those just seem so, I don't know. I do have people who are kind enough to share their experiences with me, and some of those are on my website about things. But, you know, not all reviews are authentic either. The best thing to do is to talk to the person if you can. I've mentored people online, and I've had mentoring courses, and it's fine for me if somebody wants to arrange a time to speak online. I'm not going to charge them for an initial intake or consult to see if we're a good fit, or so they can see who I am. I try to be fairly transparent on my website. That's a red flag. Oh my gosh, I've gone to websites, right? And it's like the crystals of planet whatever, and all you see is we. We strive, we love to, we here at, and there's nobody there. Come on. You need to protect yourself. Well, people need to protect themselves as consumers as well. If you are in a space where you can share who you are, please, share who you are to the extent that there's at least a name on your website. And I think most of the people who would watch this under this hashtag are doing that. But those are red flags for those who aren't sure. Total anonymity is a bad deal. Even magical names only. I understand you don't want to be doxxed. Nobody wants to put themselves and their family in positions of peril. But there has to be something else other than just your practitioner name and nothing else, and you're shrouded in complete mystery. I can't trust people like that. And there are cults out there, and there are people who will take advantage, and people who will charge you $7,500 for a course, and you get nothing out of it other than what they've peeled off of Wikipedia. And I mean Wikipedia, you know what I'm saying. And it's just not, it's just awful. But they've always been around. They've always been around, and we just need to educate ourselves. I'm not going to gatekeep and call people out. I'm sure everyone can, figure it out. I haven't really been scammed, but that's because I'm exceptionally suspicious and intuitive. So, some of us may have it a bit easier than others. How is social media affecting? I think we all know. We all know. It's laughable to have a 5-second, video with a great song and, lighting a candle and doing the thing and saying, bam, you're rich now. It's like, no, if you don't understand energy, the energy you're putting out, energy you're receiving, this takes a lot of time and patience and practice and mistakes. And you just have to keep at it. You can't get discouraged the first time you cast a spell and it doesn't work. The universe has a plan. There's a million moving parts. Maybe it was the way you directed energy or the timing or any number of things. We used to talk about this in our coven a fair bit. And once we discussed how things can go wrong, or goodness knows, even backfire, that's always fun. You learn that if you truly, this is your life and your practice, you keep going, and you seek out people who've made mistakes, and who are willing to share them with you. And it isn't my way or the highway. It never has been. I know the difference, too, between generally what I've heard after years of talking to practitioners, what everyone has pretty much experienced that is the same, and what is very personal. You learn to distinguish between the two so that you're not saying, this is the only thing, but you can say confidently, yeah, that's going to happen. So what I'd really like to is a little bit more respect for elder witches who are not being know-it-alls, but who know shit. You know, experience, and who are willing to share it, and without being called or brushed aside, I guess, or being called, as I said, know-it-alls or outdated, or it's like, excuse me, have you tried it? Have you tried it? I just had a cousin of mine, who shall remain nameless, in Europe. Okay, my partner here, he had a pretty, he had a bit of a bronchial thing happening, and my cousin who lives in Europe, who's older than me, said, slap some pork fat on. Right? And I'm like, I don't eat pork. I eat very little meat, but there's something to be said for it. I looked it up, okay? Because I have that luxury. Instead of going, yeah, oh, I went, wow, okay. And you know what I found? I found that there are about 20 kinds of animal fat, according to Eastern Europeans. And my cousin, by the way, is Bavarian. There's so many home remedies and things that we can learn about and we can share that we've thrown by the wayside. Why don't we just share them? It doesn't mean you have to do it, but it does mean keep an open mind. Not to go, oh, no, that's ridiculous. I would never do that. Or turn your nose up at it because you're vegetarian or vegan or it's horrible. Could you put the judgy aside for just 5 minutes here? You don't have to go kill a pig and slap pork fat on your chest, but you could learn about the components and find out why that is and how people have used it for centuries and that they may have known something, whether you want to follow it or not. So I don't want this to be an excruciating ramble. I feel like I'm already going on. Although, a few folks have managed an hour. I don't know. Are there other things that I'd like to say? Well, inclusivity, open mind, know who you are. One of my big things is shadow work. I always insisted the coven do shadow work. And some did, some didn't. Some went into the shadows and found they were perfect. Some went into the shadows, ran screaming never to return. And people like me just keep going back to the shadows to go, did I miss something? And maybe each time I return, I'll have a new level of awareness of things that I was either told were horrible as a child, so I've stuffed them into my subconscious and it's turned into some kind of self-loathing. Or maybe I need to look at how I'm treating people or my expectations, or when I feel cut off and lonely, have I not reached out to anybody? The basic things. That is shadow work. It isn't about self-loathing. It's about getting rid of that, about awareness. And it isn't that you're broken and in a million pieces. And I had that too. A lot of people said, you're trying to fix things like everyone's screwed up. And I'm going, okay, first of all, we are all screwed up to some extent. What is that? I don't know. It's society. It's North America. It's living in a big city. Things are going to affect us. None of us had perfect parents. If we had parents, none of us can escape insecurity, I think. I could be wrong. So shadow work. Shadow work is a good thing to do. And I think it will bring us together, make us less judgmental about what others are going through. And it's something I always insisted on, that and energy work. If you can hold a single thought in your brain for 10 minutes, you're ready to direct your energy. Does it have to be 10 minutes? No. I think my point is, our attention spans have been damaged by social media, clearly. And I think it's a muscle we need to exercise. And the longer we can focus, the more effective our magic is. And the more effective, I guess, getting to all the tasks we need to get will be. But it's something we have to work on. At least I have. I've had to work on it very, very much so. Imposter syndrome is an interesting one, and FOMO. I don't think I have those. I think imposter syndrome is insecurity, and I think my way of getting over insecurity, as with a lot of things that my brain is telling me that is complete crap, is to do just that. Question what I'm thinking. Prove it. So if I hear, well, Monica, you're a phony, you're not a real witch. Okay, first of all, what is a real witch? How do you define that? Is it the number of followers? Is it the clothing you wear? No, it's what's inside. Okay, so I am real. What if I suck as an artist? Well, you know what? There are people who are always going to be more talented than I am, and some are exceptionally gifted and don't have to work as hard at it. And there are people who will work really hard at it for a long time who may not achieve certain skill levels. That's the way, that's how it is, okay? That's how I get around imposter syndrome. Look at your achievements too. If you've just started studying, good for you. If you reviewed a book of shadows you made 10 years ago, good for you. If you're just starting one, be proud of yourself. Be kind to yourself, and you'll be kinder to others. Trust me on that one. I find most people who are exceptionally critical of others, they beat themselves up with that stick pretty bad. You know, my way of getting around being really angry at people who are problematic is I feel badly for them, and I have a certain amount of sympathy. I don't tolerate their crappy behavior, and I will stand up for myself, believe me. But I have some sympathy for how messed up they are, because you'd have to be to do some of the things that you do. That doesn't mean I'm going to walk back into it and keep taking people's bullshit. No. It means, you know, I can be at a distance and be sympathetic and just not engage. You know what I mean? Was there anything else? Social media, I think we talked about that. My own points. I am looking at my prompts here. Can we do better? Yeah, I think we talked about it. I think just being more open-minded, open-hearted, and not judging people so harshly, and not jumping in to comments to tell people what to do, but stating what you do and maybe just saying, hi, I appreciate your video. Letting people know there's community and that they're not sort of shouting into the void. You know, just knowing there's other people out there who practice what you're practicing at all levels and all cultures and all ages, to me, is comforting. But I think community and capacity building is really important. I think my work has always been to empower people, not to make them dependent. Which, by the way, is the biggest red flag there is in anything. If people tell you you need to keep coming back for, you know, because you're, you know, that's not giving people tools for empowerment. And that is what I strive to do. And I think that's pretty much my story. If I come back to share something else that I've no doubt forgotten either to say, because, I mean, I do that, right? I don't script. I cannot. I have to speak from the heart. And there may be a ton of things in the video. If I, you know, have a cup of coffee and dare to watch myself, I will be saying, why didn't I say that? Why didn't I say that? That's okay. It's okay. Whatever came out, came out. I again want to thank everyone who put together the hashtag OccultTea. I hope you all have a beautiful, blessed, magical moment, day, month, lifetime, and follow that moon. She knows what she's doing, and give me a shout in the comments. Agree, disagree, I don't know, just let me know you're there. So I don't feel like I'm shouting into the void. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch part or all of this video, and I hope we can keep this conversation rolling. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.